most exciting event that we have done on our group to date. I can't tell you how cool it is. We are with the one, the only Paul Sokol today.
Yay! Thank you for the intro. Good to see y'all today.
Paul is the author of the Infusionsoft Cookbook, something that I have stolen shamelessly many things from. I don't know if is it stealing if I paid for it?
No, that's the whole point of it, right? It's
okay.
you bought access to that knowledge. Go use it. Get rich.
He is a speaker. He is an author. He is a music promoter and enthusiast, especially of metal and hard rock. His hair should tell you everything you need to know about that genre. And I am just beyond excited to have him with us today. This is a guy that I have looked up to for years in what he's been able to do, what he's been able to accomplish. His work has revolutionized my business, clients of ours businesses, and so I am over the moon to have him here with us today. In fact, I think when he said, "Hey, I'll join you today," what my exact words to him were, "Are you sure you're not coming to teach us something?" Because really this conversation feels to me like it should be flipped around. So Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
How do I follow up with any of that? Yes, thank you so much for having me. What a delightful introduction. We're just missing like theme music, like, you know, they're coming out. This is, I'm interested to be on the other side of the conversation here. Y'all two are the experts here. This is your thing, and you're going to take me through what you guys do, and this will be really cool because I am a business owner also myself, and so I am not immune from problems that show up when you're in that space.
Absolutely. So David, you wanna kick us off?
Yeah, awesome. I gotta say I'm excited about this conversation. I'm up here. Yeah, thanks. I'm excited about this conversation because, you know, while Paul is exceptionally experienced in the marketing automation space and in his knowledge of the Infusionsoft and Keep tools, and he has worked with lots of other clients on, you know, projects. Just like any of us, you're a serial entrepreneur, you know, from all the stuff that you're doing in the music space and the event space as well as the automation space. But all of us in our own businesses, especially as agencies, as, you know, helping other people, we rarely focus on doing the things that we teach and help our clients with in our own businesses. And I know that, you know, Ken and I, we're guilty of that. And, you know, in our conversation in advance of today's talk, you know, Paul, you said that's something that you're dealing with too. And so hopefully we will unearth some things that you already know, and you just haven't had taken the time to really address, and that's going to be pretty cool. So for those of you who are not familiar with our approach, it's a concept that I got to say probably started back well before Dan Kennedy, but Dan Kennedy and the folks over at Keep Infusionsoft really introduced this entire process to many businesses throughout the world. And this is what they have called the customer lifecycle marketing approach. Basically, a framework to help businesses organize all of the things that they're doing in marketing and building their business. And it starts with identifying who your target market is, and then ultimately bringing them into your business, helping them discover that what you're offering as a solution to their need is the right solution for them. And then how do you graduate through that entire process to, you know, sell them more, get them to refer other people, etc. And so these are things that we look at with every business that we speak with, and we try to figure out when somebody says, you know, I got problems over here, I got problems over there, what are the factors that are contributing to that, and where does this all fit into the lifecycle marketing approach? And so maybe, Paul, you can give us a 2 or 3 minute introduction to the business that we're going to be talking about today. Mm-hmm. And then we'll dive into the areas that, based on our previous conversation, we thought might be the most useful for you. So can you kind of talk a little bit about the business that we're going to be chatting about.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about BePro, and this is our service agency where we help people either with their advertising or their automation or both, depending on what they got going on. Our ideal target is somebody that's doing events, ideally in person, if not they're online, stuff like this, because really the strategies are really similar. And it doesn't matter if it's a functional or an entertainment-based event. I think we were talking about that before, just as long as it's some kind of moment in time. We help with that. And so is that enough sentences?
Well, tell me when you say we help with that, what are the functions that you perform, or what are the things you help with?
Yeah, so we help with so when looking at automation, we help with the design of the customer journey, be it the automated fulfillment of whatever it is whatever product or service you sell, the sales journey or the marketing journey, or all of it. We can help go from nothing into a plan and then implement from there. And then when it comes to advertising, it's very similar as well. If you want to advertise on Facebook or Google, or even if you wanted to do like a digital billboard, we would kind of help you develop a plan, and then from there we can help you execute, and then we can ongoingly monitor that too, if that's what you need.
And so as we were talking a little bit about this in advance, you have a few different types of clients that you work with. What are the sort of most common types of events that you're supporting?
So before the pandemic, it was a lot of live events. So, music concerts, performances, occasionally like a food truck event, something like that. In fact, it's Taco Tuesday today, it's a live thing, Taco Tuesday, for the very first time in a minute. We're actually doing a Taco Tuesday at Club Red down in Mesa. So
that's cool.
Get to go out of the house. It's delightful. At least that's what's going on. I don't know. But so, yeah, entertainment is usually for more of the like social and like community management of it if they need that. So making sure that if there's an event coming up, you're always posting about it. So that's where automation comes in. You can schedule a series of like Facebook posts to say, hey, the show's coming up. And then if they want, they can also do ad money on top of that. And if it's for an online event, the same kind of thing, like an online summit, something that's more functional and entertainment based. It's you count down to it. Maybe strategy's a little different if you're selling tickets, but that's about it. I don't want to ramble again. This is your guys' show.
So it's very clear based on what you just said who the client is or who the prospect is. I mean, you're not about to go off and pursue people who don't do events, right? And it seems like there are certain types of events that you focus on, and there probably would be certain types of events that if I said, hey, Paul, are there any events that you would not? The likelihood is you might have some, right? So you're reasonably clear on who you do and don't support.
Yeah, we wouldn't support, like, if you were like Salesforce and you're like, hey, help me with Dreamforce, like that's a little too big scale for what we're talking about. I would, we could be part of the team maybe that helps with the social advertising part of it, but like, I mean, those events require so many hands that, there's our specialty in the advertising and automation bits.
So how do you acquire clients? What's the process that people discover you and or you discover them and then move to a client agency relationship?
So we do a lot of inbound marketing. So we'll post a lot of videos, or we have some blogs. We've got some blog posts and we're releasing more. And then there is a contact us form on the site, which kind of officially would be where that marketing journey becomes like a sales journey, because then it pushes a lead into a sales pipeline. And then I'm usually the one calling them and saying, hey, what's going on? And then helping them understand if, one, we can work with them, and two, if it makes sense for their business.
Okay. Ken, I want you to make sure you jump in and chat. So in terms of, that process, that was one of the areas that I think you had mentioned there's opportunity for more activity or some improvement. Where are you finding challenges or holes in that area, getting more clients?
So it would probably be the front end of it, just the marketing of it, being consistent about it.
Okay.
Because the sales process, I mean, it's pretty dialed in. No one's slipping through the cracks. So I guess it would be the filling of the hopper. And so it's actually not really a conversion problem, which is something that's super common when people are like, oh, I need leads or I lead traffic. It actually is a lead problem at this point, which I'm happy to have that.
That's great. The question that you raised when we were talking earlier was a little bit more about just finding the time or making the time to do stuff. And I'm curious how you arrived at this particular path, and were there other paths that you explored for getting connected to potential clients?
Well, I like to think of business as a garden, and there's different kinds of plants. You got to water them all and take care of them. And the marketing part of the garden was just the most untended. And that's kind of always been a thing. Again, like sales is okay, fulfillment's cool, operationally and people wise, we're tight and lean, and finances are all right. So it's really the marketing part of the garden, and then also kind of with the offer development part of the garden, which is where we're coming out with new stuff, either to bring new clients in or existing extension offers for current paying clients.
So when you, Paul, started looking at how you're going to get people to raise their hand, so to speak, become a lead, what drove you to take an inbound approach?
I guess I've always believed that knowledge is effectively free, and so go ahead and share what you know with people. It's shocking how many people still don't know you can schedule posts on a Facebook page natively using Facebook without any extra tools. So writing about stuff like that and sharing that information should attract the kinds of people that resonate with how our style is, and if you're not, I guess if you're also not in the event space or something, or like it wouldn't work for us, I would still like to be able to help you with the knowledge. So whether it works or not. So if you are working at Dreamforce and you're running the social ads, cool. Maybe you're reading our blog posts and that's helping influence, where Dreamforce is going. But outbound marketing is, I don't know. I guess I always think of it as a traditional method. Like that's usually where you have direct mail or things like that. Is that kind of what you mean? Inbound versus outbound?
I'm going to see if David can do something kind of on the fly.
Ooh.
Which is, David, we have a traction channels chart. Yeah. Is there any ability you have to pull that up so that we could talk about it?
Possibly.
While you work on that, I'm gonna talk to Paul about this inbound.
Right. Cool.
I think that the discussion of inbound versus outbound is a huge oversimplification. And I think for a lot of people in the marketing space, it's, well, if I'm outbound, I have to be pushy.
Can you take a moment and just define those if anybody who's watching doesn't know what they mean?
Inbound, I would say is you're putting something out there that the prospect ultimately opts. Oh, I got to move.
Sorry about that.
Saying, I want something to do with you. Whereas the outbound is they're not looking for you, you're going to them, right? And this is, I think, where people are seeing things like cold calling, or interruption-based advertising, TV ads, radio ads, etc. is a lot of what people think there. But one of the things that I'm really passionate about with this is we typically, when we think about marketing, right, there are 5 to 10 activities, and everyone says those are my options, right? Is I can write blog posts or articles and put them online, and I can do the inbound thing, right? Some kind of a lead magnet, if you will, or I can go outbound and I can do outbound cold calling. I can do a more aggressive sales style, right? And that's kind of what people, I think, have in their heads. I think as I look at it, and this is an area that I really try to push to a lot of our clientele.
I'm working on it. There we go. It's not great.
I have faith in you.
That's great.
Paul's up here now.
Oh my
Um, there are so many more options than that, right? I'm just going to take the Rand Fishkin example because we all know Rand, right? Rand is an old school SEO guy, really well known for SEO, but the way he grew his business was not primarily through SEO, right? If you remember Paul, Website Grader back in the day,
possibly,
right? Pre SEO Moz, they had a tool that you could go to, and you would type in a bunch of information, and it would like go through and scan your website and give you details, right? And it would give you like an A, B, C, D, F grade on how well designed for SEO your website is, right? And this was a fantastic tool, but it was not, in truth, it wasn't really an inbound tool because they didn't really sell you off of it. And it wasn't really an outbound tool because they weren't going to you. It was something else. It was what I would classify as engineering is marketing. You're building something that is a marketing engine, right? And so you could still, I think, argue where do we put this if we're just black and white in versus out. But that's I think an idea of something that is kind of in maybe a third or a fourth category. One of the best areas that I look at for all small businesses is the number one place to get new business is through business development, right? And so the most common question, the most important question with this is, who has your customer before you do? And so,
sorry, there's just a fly. Like,
sorry, it wasn't a funny question, but the fly is kind of funny. So, yeah.
So right now in your business, Paul, you've got someone who's holding an event, right? A concert, whatever. Who did they hire before they came to you? What other service provider are they working with before they've come to your door? And this could be anything from a venue to what have you.
Sure. Well, let's go with something like Eventbrite. It's very common for people that are running events. They're going to use Eventbrite, and then I'm assuming I'd be further down the value chain once the tool's been chosen.
Right.
Okay.
What is there someone that you have the ability to link up with more directly? I mean, maybe it's Eventbrite. Is there another business that you could potentially work to solicit to say, hey, I think we can become part of your value chain for the customer you're serving, right? Because Eventbrite, right? The problem is for many of them, well, what happens if they're selling tickets off-site, right? Or what happens if it's a free event? There's no way for us to make money,
right?
Right? Maybe it's the venue themselves. Right. I don't know these things, but that's this big question when we look at strategic partnerships or business development is who has your customer before you do, and how can you go to that person and have them start referring their book of business to you?
Okay.
The classic example that I've experienced several times is every time I have bought a new home, the realtor says, "Oh, and here's our mortgage guy,"
right?
And it's just a handoff, right? And that happens in lots of other business environments. If there's a natural place where you can slot your business in, that's a great relationship to be able to have, because suddenly it's not relying on the one approach that you have, which is we're going to demonstrate our authority by getting people to see our content, and they're going to say, "Oh, wow, these guys know what they're doing," and make the logical leap that they then need you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I'm totally seeing that. That's so when you're talking about outbound, Ken, I think about things like just like running Facebook ads to people who like Eventbrite or things like that. That to me, that's definitely a type of outbound, which is not a bad idea. And it could even be combining those things where like you do the drive traffic to the blog post, and then anybody that's actually been to the site, then you say, hey, here's how we can help out. Rudy toot toot. And give them a call to action or something.
Yeah. I would actually argue that running ads to get somebody to take an action is still inbound. Actively going out and pursuing them, cold calling, stalking them on LinkedIn, networking, those are real outbound things. But if you are passively doing something like running ads to get somebody to discover you, and then they're taking all the action up until the point that they raise their hand and say, I'd like to have a conversation, because you've done all the automation to get them there, I believe that is still inbound.
Okay.
How many event promoters are there in Phoenix right now that you could work with?
Man, I'm gonna say like in the
Now,
whole.
are you
market?
just geographically focused on Phoenix?
No, not necessarily. Well, I mean, helping people with their social and running ads doesn't. We can do that from anywhere. We could work with a New York club. I would say, let's say at least, I don't know. And Phoenix has a really special music scene, so maybe let's say 50 legitimate event promoters, just because there's stuff everywhere.
How many of the top 5 do you currently work with?
I would say 2 of them. Or, well, actually, hold on. That's as far as top 5.
Yeah, just the top 5.
Maybe one of the top 5.
Okay. What would it take for you to get in front of the rest of that top 5? Because one of the things that I noticed is you gave us your customer avatars, right? Are those the amount of detail you have there and the amount of problems that you're able to solve for those people? It seems like you could go to these other top 4 and say, hey, here are the problems that I can solve for you. As a very simple outbound. I mean, even if it's just a phone call or a sales letter.
Yeah, I would totally. That would be a decent sales letter, and you could even treat it like an inbound kind of thing, where like, yeah, here's the problems I can help solve for you, and here's how they get solved. But it's just on a piece of paper. So like, if they want that, then Rudy toot, call to action.
Yeah.
Is it pretty clear what problems most promoters have, or do they do stuff in house and you can take that extra burden off their hands, or what are the types of problems that they're dealing with?
Yeah, I don't think I shared this with you, but pulling out the positioning doc for this is gonna be great. I'm gonna sit here and squint at my computer for a little bit. We have a positioning doc that kind of explains that. Let me bust that out real quick.
And actually, you can't share stuff from your end, so you'll just have to read off of it.
Yeah, it's all good. It's only a sentence or so. So, so we went through. So this is kind of like our master problem statement that we went through the bartender conversation with. So our ideal person's sitting there, and they're complaining to their barkeep, and they say, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to getting butts and seats at my events, and social media makes it extra complicated. Even if I'm not running paid promotions. Plus, I've already got a ton of plates spinning, so there's a time or desire to learn how to make social media work for my events. So that's kind of the general problem statement, and I swapped it from first person to second person just for this conversation. But here, I'll chat it into the chat, right? I can still chat.
You can if you'd like, yeah. And so, are those things that you've heard people say, or are those just your assumptions?
So this is basically highly educated guesses based on interactions with current existing types of folks, where it really comes down to as an event promoter, there's so many things moving, and then social media is just like that extra, like it's like a bonus part on a car that like you need. It's like a turbo, like cool, here's a piece of equipment that I need to like do something with.
I think one of the most important things that any business can do is not guess, but actually ask and try to get, find the statement from the existing client or from the prospect. And so it's simple questions like, what made you call us today? Or what made you want to hire us? Because it's a question that you can go out and ask, and maybe it will confirm that what you've just read to us is 100% accurate, or maybe you didn't think about something that they have at the top of their mind, and suddenly it gives you the ammunition to position yourself in a much more effective way. And so when Ken is talking about the idea of how do you get in front of these other promoters, Well, this would be a logical and useful step to take to actually figure out what's going to make them sit up and pay attention, rather than going out and testing it, finding it failed, and then scratching your head going, huh, I wonder what didn't go right there.
Okay.
So I think it does make sense to go to your current clients and just ask. I mean, if they love you and want to support you, they'll gladly answer that questions like that.
Absolutely.
The other thing with this, Paul, that I'd really push you on is I'm a big believer in writing down your top 50 prospects.
Okay.
Who are the top 50 people that if you signed them, you're doing a jig because you're pumped,
Okay.
right? And for a guy who does metal to do a jig, you've got to be really pumped.
Of course. It'll be way down.
Right? And so
Hey, Ken, are we good with the traction channels? Or do you want to keep that up anymore?
we can kill it. I don't think anyone can read it. At least I can't. It's so small.
Yeah. Nah.
It's IDS now.
Yeah.
We're back.
I just wanted to get back up on top here.
Good to see you, right? But this idea of a list of your top 50 prospects, I think it's going to allow you maybe to focus a little bit more and ask yourself, what is it that I need to do to get one of these people specifically to take interest in me? Right?
I like that idea. That's cool.
The upside to inbound is you're dealing with a lot more qualified people. The downside is you don't get to choose who those people are. Right?
Yeah.
And so if we can say, hey, look, here are the people that I want to work with. Here's the people that I would value working with. Here's the people who, by working with 5 out of these 50, my name is going to be known by another 500.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the type of thing where now this can become a self-perpetuating thing, because now it's an authentication piece as well. Of, hey, I've worked with XYZ top promoters.
Mm-hmm.
You know that I can work with your small shop.
And also in that space, I'm going to imagine that a lot of promoters don't see themselves as competing with each other as much as they're all going to the same vendors, because they may not be promoting, things the same day, the same time. So they may often work together, share resources. I certainly know that that's the case here in this market.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for 2 different promoters to go in on like one artist or one tour. There's competition among the talent. So if it's like, hey, this band's coming through, like, who gets it? But really
my point is really that you can leverage referrals from one promoter to another. Right? If you're doing a good job, So that's not a bad place to go.
So what would it take for you to practically put together a list of top 25, top 50 people you want to work with?
Mm-hmm. What would it take? I would imagine. Oh, sorry.
Well. So what would it take to put the list together, and then decide what kind of an action you want to send to them? Right? How are you going to decide to get that person aware of your existence?
So I guess as far as compiling the list, I would definitely I'd have to do some research and find out like who are some of the bigger types of folks, because again we can do stuff nationally, which is nice. And then from there, looking at, I guess if it's outbound, again it could be an outbound phone call or a sales letter. I still would probably prefer the sales letter method, just because this is still within the marketing journey itself, and human labor is more important in the sales journey, at least for right now, based on the scale of stuff. And then as far as what would the letter have, I have no clue. I guess it wouldn't even really be a sales letter. It's like, here's a free lead magnet that you didn't ask for, but it's cool, and here's some kind of response mechanism.
Yeah, I think the question really is, how would you figure out what that is? What it is could be way, way broader than the examples that you've just shared.
Sure.
Again, just like the range of traction channels that we consider, we're often focused on the ones that are the most obvious.
Right.
But the ones that tend to be the most effective are not the ones that everybody else is necessarily doing. Yeah,
For
so
sure.
I'll give you an example of stuff that we've talked about here before, which is going non-traditional to stand out or to get them to just pay attention. There's a great story about a copywriter who went to I can't remember which. I think it was Agora Financial, and he wanted to get a job working, in the copy team there. And they're very, very, very selective about who they will bring in. So he went to an outrageous ends to send, I can't remember what it was, an armored car with a guy who had a briefcase. And this is not something I'm suggesting you do. I just want to give you some context here. A briefcase with the handcuff on it to the briefcase, and the guy walks in, and then a FedEx shows up with the combination to unlock the briefcase, and inside the briefcase there's a letter that says, basically, I will be calling you in 10 minutes. And then the guy who's applying for the job calls, and what do you think happens? He gets the job. Why? Because he knew how to get attention, and that's one of the key things that you need to do in copywriting. Right? So I'm not suggesting you go to these lengths, but what could you do that's going to make somebody who is in the position of a prospect of yours go, wow, these guys went out of their way to do something to get me to the least I could do is give them 10 minutes of my time.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories with that is it was a kid who wanted to work for Richard Branson, and he sent him his resume in a 6 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot box. And it sent it to his office. And in there, the only thing that was in there was a cover letter and his resume and a whole bunch of packing peanuts.
That's ridiculous.
Right? And the kid ended up getting hired. And so it's that kind of thing is, what can you put out there, right? Whether it's taking the book that you've already written and saying, here's 20 ways that event promoters can automate their business, and republishing it as a smaller book.
Yeah.
Right? And what you're sending this free guide, your book, right? And a request for a meeting to talk about how to be implemented in their business. Again, this is only limited by your creativity.
For sure. So yeah, this is cool. I'm going to be noodling on this for a minute. I'm almost thinking like some kind of a functional lumpy mail that would, I have no idea. I have no clue what.
There's a lot of classic. I just got this the May edition of 3D mail results in the mail yesterday, and that's if you just go to these guys. They obviously have the fake, urgent envelopes that you can buy from them, and that gets attention. But all the lumpy stuff that you could go, they have an entire. If you go through their website, they have here's the garbage can that you can buy, the mini garbage can, and if you put that in an envelope, right, people are going to go, what's in here? Well, here's 8 different things that you can say about all the stuff that they're throwing away because they're not using you, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure, yeah.
So just thinking about those kinds of things, it's just a hook to get somebody to start the conversation with you. And these are very, very effective conversation starters. And you got to remember, nobody else is doing this stuff.
That's true.
Right? It's going to be, it's going to really stand out.
Yeah, especially now, direct mail is in my opinion, it would be more effective because fewer people are doing it. I know the one time a week I go to get mail and I have something in there that's not some automated, piece of crap. I'm like, yeah, human interaction.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So that's one area that we could keep going down that path if you want, or we can jump to another part. What do you guys want to do here?
I mean, this has definitely given me some great things to think about. Anything beyond that would be noodling on some specifics. Okay. So I guess we can move on unless there's any other things that y'all want to specifically talk about.
Next area, David.
So next area. So, one of the other things that I heard as you were talking about the balance of the relationship that really jumped out was once you have the event done, unless there's another event to work on or there's some post-event activity to do, that contract or that project is over, basically.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that we work on is figuring out how we can get more business out of each client, whether it's directly selling them more or getting them to help recommend us to others. Well, the recommending to others thing, you probably got that covered pretty well. But where many business, let's hope you do, and if you don't, that's another path we can go down.
Funny story is, up until about maybe a month or so ago, I wasn't asking for referrals in any capacity when someone became a paying client. So now it's gonna ask them at least twice a year until that email stops working. So
that's right. You have an automated follow-up to all of your past clients. You said, yeah, that's
I
awesome.
do. But now I do. But for the past close to 4 years, didn't take me until now to realize, I should be asking for referrals.
Are you doing NPS with that?
No, we're not doing any post-project surveys. That's another opportunity to learn, I guess.
Well, I'd love to push you our campaign that does this, where we do NPS into referral request.
Oh, cool. I'd love to see that.
Hey, Ken?
Yeah.
I'm just going to pretend I don't know what NPS is for a moment so that you can explain it.
And by pretend, you mean you actually don't know and you need me to explain it. Perfect.
Yes. I can Google it. Hold on.
NPS is Net Promoter Score. And so if you've ever seen that question, how likely would you be to recommend? Or its newer cousin, which I'm actually a pretty big fan of, how likely would you be to hire this person?
Interesting.
I actually first saw that from a Delta email. How likely would you be to hire the pilot into your own business? Very, very interesting spin on NPS. But
was it that awesome pilot we had?
It was not, but I really wish it was. We had the greatest pilot ever for a flight. I'm not going to get into it, but he was incredible.
Right.
And so the whole idea behind NPS is how do you separate people who are your promoters from people who are neutral about you, from people who are detractors.
Right.
And so that as a tool, what we've found is the best way to drive great online reviews and to mitigate any issues that are coming up with clients that you may not know about is post-engagement or during the engagement in some cases, you give them an NPS survey. And you use this then to say, hey, those people who are happy, they're your promoters. You ask them to leave a review, and you ask them for referrals. And so you tie that all together. Those people who are neutral, you go back to them. And you say, hey, basically, how do I get you from neutral to happy? Right? How can I wow you more? It's also a very useful thing there because you can see. Are there holes? Are there trends that you're missing that maybe you aren't wowing specific subsets of customers? And then you've got your detractors, and what you're able to do there largely is you're able to mitigate before a bad review happens, before your Yelp gets blown up. Right?
Yes.
And say, hey, let me solve the problem for you to the best of my ability now. And what's interesting is there's so much research that says some of the biggest promoters of businesses are people who initially had bad experiences, but the business took action to correct that.
That's awesome.
And so what I would say, Paul, is I think it could be very useful for you and for other businesses to have this ability to say, I don't want to just ask everybody for a referral, but I want to ask those people who are most likely and those people who are definitely not going to be offended by the ask, right? Because you ask, think about it, right? If Cox Cable called you today and said, hey, Paul, do you have any referrals or recommendations that you'd like to send to us? What kind of a note back are they getting?
It would be very delicately put, and all the swear words would be taken out of it just because, I'd do a first draft and then clean it up.
because we're on a live feed right now.
Right.
And so that kind of a thing is we know that it's not always the right place or time to send that kind of a thing. And so how we can separate that, I think, might be a really good first step to tie into your reviews and recommendations process.
So we were gonna cover something else, but I'm glad that we went down this path because this was certainly useful. The one area that I also picked up on in our previous conversation was the place that you could perhaps extract more business out of existing clients, whether it's at the end of an engagement, having a different offer for them that might be an ongoing offer or a recurring offer, or maybe there are other things that they're in need of that you can provide as a service that makes sense for your business. The third thing, and a lot of businesses say, gosh, I don't have the bandwidth or the time or whatever to do more than what I do, and so I don't want to create anything else. Well, the third way to do this is to create strategic alliances where you are perhaps, just like we talked about, having somebody hand them off to you. You could position yourself to hand them off to the next logical vendor or service provider, and get paid for making that referral or making that introduction. So there are ways to build in additional revenue into a business, and it's something that many businesses just don't explore. So I wanted to kind of go down the path of is there something logical there? Have you tried stuff? Have you thought about stuff? Where can you get additional revenue from existing clients?
It's a great question of the whole, who's next in line? Who would I pass it off to? Because I guess it depends. For me, it depends on how often are they doing events that would kind of guide the recommendations. So if you're something like a music venue and you're doing 20 plus events a month, then maybe the next recommendation is to like, hey, here's maybe a better hosting service for your website or something. I don't know, just pulling something out of thin air.
But I'm guessing that if it's a venue, that's probably ongoing work.
Well, if somebody else does it, yeah, and then that's where the subscription,
No, but yeah, right. So, but if it's a promoter and you're doing a one-off event, you're promoting it, the event's done, and then you have to say, okay, what's next? Well, we don't have another event for another 3 months.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, what else can we do together? So there's ways to maybe look at your pricing or your business model. Is there continuity setup that we could have so that you are regularly paying us even in downtime? This is a classic one that seasonal home service providers deal with all the time. Like, what's the one that you hate when I talk about it? Oh, the window washers, right? So window washers in seasonal homes, in seasonal communities, right? How do they get paid during the winter when the people aren't living in the house? Well, they create a year-round package where people are paying them every single month, and they go in and they do some maintenance thing in the off season to prepare the house for when the family comes back.
Yeah.
Are there opportunities like that for you to restructure the way that you are positioning your offer so that you have continuity income from a promoter even when they are between gigs?
So I think, yeah, there's already kind of an existing the service line item for that. It's $250 a week per channel for us to monitor your ads and make iterations. So after the event, it could just be like, we're gonna do the community growth package or whatever, where all we're running is just page like ads and engagement boosts. And then if they are ever doing any kind of a lead gen stuff, we can help with them. But that way they can still be relevant, and continue to get their brand out even after the event. So that's maybe
I see Ken's mind ticking there, and as soon as you said lead gen, it struck me that, is it possible some of these guys don't have that kind of stuff and probably need it set up and managed, right? That's another area that you might explore if it makes sense. It dovetails with everything else you're doing.
Something you said a second ago, Paul, hit me as you just said this. You said that that there's competition between promoters as to which band they're getting.
Right.
So what is it that the band is choosing off of, and how can you do things to improve the promoter's likelihood of signing the better bands? So if a promoter, let's say, has a social following of 50,000 people, right, versus a social following of 3,000,
and an email list and
all these other things, is a band more likely to sign on with them? Again, I have no idea. I don't know anything about this space, but are there things that you could do that would make their acquiring of better talent more likely, even?
For sure. I mean, I think it is just keeping them in that conversation. So, because it really comes down to, bands are going to choose who are they most likely to sell the most tickets with, on that night. So for like a promoter or a venue, I think having some kind of a general package where, listen, we're always running audience ads and we're going to boost everything that you post and yes, you tell us not to. And then that way you're still active in the conversation and people are seeing you. Whether, again, you're doing a lot of shows or if you're like a business conference and you just do it once a year. Okay, cool. Well, let me just manage your paid social, very lightly for this. And then if they need more stuff down the pipe or they want to do, hey, manage our Facebook and our Google, and then it expands from there.
Are you in the business, quote unquote, of growing email lists?
I mean, yeah, I can absolutely help with that if people want to do that.
So from a business conference perspective, right, during the off season, we're still going to be growing your email list so that when you launch your next thing, now instead of an email just to people who've attended, it's people who wanted to attend or who'd be a good fit to attend.
Yeah.
And so they're using the past year's information as lead magnets to drive more potential buyers for the following year.
Or even introducing, between live event, virtual events where you can help them grow their email list simply by getting people onto those much cheaper to produce events, right? That's another way that you can be an asset to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, running ads to collect lists for those kinds of things is cake. You can usually peel leads off pretty cheaply these days.
So I think that fits into the problem that they're saying that we talked about a little bit earlier, is there's a lot of these moving parts to getting butts in seats, and so how is it that you can work even when there's not an event scheduled to be getting more butts in seats for the next event?
So again, at least we're talking about Facebook. I keep coming back to, you're always running audience ads to grow that. And then maybe you have something specific for, like, you make a custom audience of all your event responders, and any of those people that don't like it, you definitely make sure you're running. Yeah. And maybe that's this whole thing. We're going to run this campaign to people who visited your stuff. And, it's just really one targeting, but you can market it in such a way that it's like, hey.
Yeah. And for you, you're adding value to their business by saying, let's do something outside of the event, promotion space. You're adding you're adding income because they're paying you for that added value, and ultimately you are building up a business that is going to have a continued appreciation for having you involved, because you can guide them through those extra things that they hadn't thought about.
Yeah. That's a good point. That was something that happened with Club Red. We took them over 10,000 likes. We got them over there at that last couple thousand. Those last couple hundred. No, I guess it was the last couple thousand when we started working with them. And the numbers are just constantly always ticking up. So they're happy that value's there. So yeah, I guess that is a really good way to just. It's like Lego. Our services are like Legos. So I guess packaging it up in such a way that makes sense. Let's build your audience while people are at home, and then you're the first place they think of when they want to go be entertained. or when there's a conference.
Excellent. Hey, we are 50 minutes into our conversation, and we probably should wrap things up shortly. We've covered a lot more than I was expecting we were going to cover. We talked a bit about ways to generate new business that may be a little less common than most business consider. We talked about extracting more and better referrals, and then finally we talked about ways to I was going to say extract, but get your existing clients to give you more money in exchange for more value from you. Paul, do you want to let folks know where they can find your business and learn more about the services that you're providing?
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody's interested in working with us, you can go ahead and check us out on our website, which is BePro.Events. So BePro.Events. Having some fun with that top level domain there. And then on social, you can find us at BePro Now, and you can find me specifically at facebook.com/underthehair. And I think that's, kind of all the main points there. Don't want to give too many calls to action.
Brilliant. Kendall, you want to wrap things up for us? Maybe not. It looks like Ken is frozen. So,
I got you.
Awesome.
Been studying with that guy who paints himself silver for that one. Hey, Paul, I am so excited that you joined us today, man. It was a real honor to have you here, and I really hope that you got some real value out of this time.
Yeah, this has been cool.
Think about, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon, my friend.
Absolutely, and high five. We're gonna do it.
Oh,
wrong way.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And
all right, guys.
From one side to the next.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching, folks, and we will be back here next Tuesday with another exciting, although not nearly as exciting as this one, conversation with. I have no idea who it is, so I can't say right or wrong, but. Another exciting conversation, digging deeper into another business. So thanks for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next time. Take care.